Zycam knows that when you live life to the fullest, you never want to let a cold slow you down. With Zycam's cold shortening products, you can actually shorten colds when taken at the first sign. And with the winter chill in the air, you need the #1 cold shortening brand to help shorten a cold when taken at the first sign this season. Because you should never let a cold stop you from missing out on your favorite moments of the season. Find Zycam in your local cold and flu aisle.
Well, shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Times are old, in times of new, there's a guide to follow to make it true. It's the pop culture field,
That's folks, right. Welcome to the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast, where today we're going to be taking another look at some of our favorite pieces of fantasy pop culture. And, fantasy doesn't ultimately mean, medieval times, dragons, knights.
That's kind of the classic
fairies
definition of fantasy.
Yeah. Oh, it's broad. It is so broad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, fantasy, that could be a good place to start, because how do you define the fantasy genre? Because there's kind of classic fantasy. We're talking about like Wizards and Warriors, Lord of the Rings, your kind of European Middle Ages style where you got castles and dragons and the like. But you got oh my. You have other
castles and dragons alike. Oh my.
You have other fantasy genres. I don't know. Like when does it become? What is it fantasy and when is it science fiction? Right? Science fiction is I guess
that's a hard
more
one.
There's like a technological. There's a scientific kind of bent to it. You know what I mean? Like there's science
like
fantasy.
Spaceships.
Well, yeah, because Star Wars is the classic example. Like, is that science fiction or is it fantasy? And then people make
it has
up
both aspects of
right.
it.
There's technology. It's like a semi-futuristic type of a landscape. There's the Force, which is like almost like a magical kind of essence. You have knights, and you literally have knights and wizards. Saving the.
I mean, is there such thing as sci-fi fantasy?
Well, there's science fantasy is what they call it, but it's nested within. It's like
sci-fi.
A subgenre of science fiction. So fantasy, I'm sure, has the same kinds of aspects to it. But yeah, there's. I mean, I feel like maybe I'm thinking steampunk, but I guess that would be kind of more science fiction-y because it has to do with like technology.
That is true. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah. Well,
where? Maybe
we'll find out in the midst of today's discussion, because we have a lot to go over, and this will obviously be it's almost unfair to have a episode called fantasy, because that genre is so broad. Even if you were just to limit yourself to the classic definition of fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit style. That kind of stuff.
Crawl.
But Crawl. Yeah. So maybe as we get into this and we talk about some of our favorites in the genre, we'll get a better idea of what exactly fantasy is, So
why?
I mean,
do this to ourselves.
I'm so excited for this one, Cameron, because this is what I grew up on, is fantasy stuff. I'd say fantasy sci-fi, but I think if I look back to what I was exposed to more of when I was a kid, it was definitely in the fantasy era, like Princess Bride type stuff, Neverending Story, Labyrinth, solid fantasy realm. And then, of course, there was like Star Trek and Star Wars and other properties like that introduced me to more science fiction. But to me, it's all the same love. This is where I would go to escape from my tumultuous childhood, such as it was. This is what, fantasy is. You're escaping to another world where anything is possible. I heard somebody say once, science fiction is, it could happen, maybe, and fantasy is like this could never happen. This will never happen.
This could never happen.
But at the end of the day, some of the best stories in the fantasy genre it's like a different way to tell the human story. You know, it's like you put a different face on something, or you have somebody of a different, you know, like a dragon say something, words of wisdom, and all of a sudden your kind of mind is open to it. Whereas if your parents were saying it to you, you'd be like, screw that, you know?
Yeah. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's waste no time here, because I know you're excited. Your epic intro here to why it's so important to you, I feel just the same. Because that was my childhood too. Yeah, I remember running around my backyard with like blocks of wood, thinking that they were giant swords, and I'd be like fighting the invisible enemies that inhabited my backyard.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I got into archery because like I love the fantasy. So I remember when I was a kid, my first bow, I was given it on Christmas, and my parents, instead of putting from Santa, because they when you're young, you have like your basic presents there, and then you wake up and there's more presents, and they're not from the family members, or from Santa. My presents was from Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli.
What great parents! What a great parental thing.
Yeah, good, solid move, right? Yeah, so I got my first bow from Legolas. It was awesome. Yeah,
that's cool, man. Well, why don't I kick this off? I'm actually going to start more current to my life nowadays, and then maybe I can move backwards down my list. But Diablo 4, man, I'm playing it on stream.
Okay.
And
yeah, tell me about it. I'm like on the edge of buying it right now.
If you are looking for, it's a grind, right? It's a grindy type game, because it's
a hustle game.
Massive open world. You can kind of stick to the main story. You can do all sorts of side missions. But the whole point is building up your character, grinding for that cool gear, those abilities, leveling up, and unlocking all of your abilities. And I got a necromancer. My favorite part about the necromancer is that you can summon undead minions. So I've got like these 9 minions, like a couple skeletal soldiers and a couple skeletal mages, and I'm like walking around with my skeletal posse.
Your personal security detail, your PSD element of the undead.
It's true.
Yeah,
that's right.
Cool.
And it's great, man, because I remember the original Diablo from back in the day, back in the 90s. Such a great experience. You're in the town of Tristram, and you're the adventuring warrior. You've heard of the legend of Diablo down in the depths, and you go to try to defeat him. And every level that you go down, like every 5 levels or so, the scenery kind of changes. It gets more and more demonic and more hell-like, and you encounter all sorts of people on their own little adventures along the way. And then at the very end...
so it's like truly open world, so you can come across like other players in this dungeon?
Well, not in the first one, but in Diablo 4, you see it's always online, so you'll see other adventurers walking around and doing their thing. Maybe you guys can let me know out there. I haven't tried to play with anybody, but I imagine there's probably an element to that of cooperation. But I haven't played a Diablo game since. I know about them. I remember when they were coming out, but I wasn't a big PC guy back then. I was always playing on my friends' PCs. That's how I played through the first one. But Diablo 2 and 3 totally missed out on. I know a lot of people out there grew up playing those ones, but when Diablo 4 came out, man, I really wanted to crack it open because I've always loved this franchise, and Lilith looks totally awesome, and there's all the creature designs, and all the different classes. You got like druid, sorcerer, necromancer. You got
you have like berserkers too, and like barbarians.
Yeah, you got a barbarian in this one, and it's really cool to build up your character and their abilities, and just smash through just hordes of enemies. And I actually have it for me right now. I have it on the lowest tier difficulty. And it's a little on the easy side, but then I'll go up against a boss and I'll just get smashed. So I think I'm probably in the right spot.
Is it worth it, man?
Is it
Should
worth
I
it?
look into it?
I mean, why don't you wait? Why don't you hold off a little bit and get your fill of Shadow of War? Because if it's the kind of, you could get obsessed with it. Like you could really get into it and really get into the grind. And
Blizzard has their way of making games that absolutely do that.
They do. They have games that turn into real time sucks. But this one is going to be, they're going to have seasons. They're going to try to keep pushing it, keep pushing out new content, and they want to give this one legs for the time being. So I'm happy I picked it up when I did. It's fun to stream and just like hang out with people and just blast through wave after wave of enemy hordes. But I love the lore. The whole Diablo series. It's all about the different denizens of hell, and you and your characters, for whatever reason, are out to oppose them before they spread hell on earth, literally. And so, yeah, I'm happy that they spent as much time on it as they did. It's really good out of the gate. I got into it a couple weeks after the initial release, so maybe there were some bugs that they had to work out. But for me, I've only ever had like one instance of dropping off, like losing my online connection to the game and having to start over. But it's been...
Well, that's my hesitation, man. I feel like the more I wait, the longer I'm giving other players to like get the head to get like the advantage, and then I'm just gonna come in and just get absolutely smashed. Because is there like a PvP element to it?
Gosh, is there? I haven't tried to look because I'm not really into that. So I don't think I don't think it's that kind of game. There might be a cooperative kind of thing, but I think it's really just a PvE.
Okay, well that's good to know, because like in World of Warcraft, you play on different servers. So there's like PvE servers or PvP servers. There's role playing servers, which are weird. Stay away from those, because like people take those super seriously for some reason, and they like talk like the characters, and it's like weird. But like if you're on a PvE server, the people can't. If you come across an enemy faction. Like, say you're playing Alliance or you're playing Horde and you come across an Alliance character. Like in PvE, you can't just attack them right away. Like, you need to challenge them to a duel. Like, it says their enemy faction, like all the PvE characters on the Alliance side will attack the opposite side, but you can't unless they change their status to PvP. So, like, you can switch it on and off to be attacked by, open people. But that shit's lame. So you play on PvP servers, and, like, people from higher levels with like that are all geared out will come back to lower level questing areas and just absolutely decimate the lower levels just for fun. So like it's anxiety producing, because you're just out there just trying to grow up, get your cool equipment and level up to max out, and then all of a sudden this dude who you can't even see his level displayed, because I think if it's like he's 7 or 8 or close to 10 levels above you, it just shows a skull. Don't
mess with him.
Yeah, you're like, don't mess with it. So like, and they'll just come and absolutely brutalize you. And so that's like what I'm nervous about, is like if I go on Diablo and I like wait too long and I start trying to grind, and I'm just gonna be totally taken out, and it's not gonna be a fun experience.
Yeah. It's classic it's classic fantasy rather. The world that they've created, but they really go for kind of the darker side of things, and they build out this whole lore in Diablo against, like, there's an eternal war between heaven and hell, and even the angel is angel's in it. I forget what the main guy's name is, but he's kind of a punk anyway. Like, he's kind of not a very good dude, because there's all this kind of intrigue and mystery behind his true intentions and what he's all about, and it's not a happy world that you live in. It's kind of Warhammer 40K-esque, where it's kind of bit of the grimdark kind of thing, but great fantasy series. And they did a good job with this one, and I hope it continues to develop and get better.
What do you got for me, dude? What do you want to talk about here?
Man, I'm looking at the list, and I know that we ran out of time last time, so I want to talk about this because I have very strong, passionate feelings about both the books and the television series. But Wheel of Time, man, Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time series. It's a book series. Okay. It started, man, it must have started in like the 80s or something. But my brother introduced it to me in the 90s, kind of shortly after we had moved to Colorado. My brother has always been like my gateway drug to fantasy series. Well, all of us in the family are all big readers, which I really appreciate. We like to read.
That's cool.
And we all like to read fantasy.
Nerds.
Yeah, we all like to read fantasy novel series as well. So I remember my sister, when I was younger, reading the Shannara series, which I know they've adapted since into television series a little bit. But my brother was reading the Wheel of Time series, and at that time, I think maybe most of the books were definitely out, but not all of them. I think they had like maybe 2 or 3 left we didn't know this at the time, but Robert Jordan was going to pass away, and then they handed it off to Brandon Sanderson, who finished out the series based on his notes. But Wheel of Time, if you don't know, folks, classic fantasy type setting. It's essentially this continent, this nation that encompasses all of the familiar kinds of cultures that we have here on Earth, so like up in the, out in the Eastern, it's like the Ale. They're kind of like the hard warrior, like almost like a Scottish, but like also African tribalist kind of nature. And then on the, the main characters come from a small town village up in the mountains. That's very like, Northern European, that kind of stuff. And then you've got the Southern kingdoms, which are more like Spanish. They're a little more like a kind of scantily clad and passionate with their emotions. So it's like a combination of that kind of stuff, the fiery spirit. But anyway, it's all this whole world, and it's the wheel of time turns and ages come and past, and everything that it's kind of a reincarnation type of religion or spirituality with them, where everything that has passed will come back around again. And so in this turning of the wheel, this age of man, they call it.
Wheel of Time. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. It just keeps turning. But in the previous age, there were what was called channeling, which men and women could both access, kind of the one power. There was a male side and a female side. And there was a great battle with the darkness, with the Dark One, kind of God and the devil kind of figures. And the Dark One had his minions and his people who could channel, and there was this great battle. And in order to save humanity, the main guy, Lews Therin Telemann, took 100 warriors, and they went and attacked the base, the kind of the headquarters of the Dark One, and they sealed him away with these powerful seals. But in the midst of the battle, the Dark One's counterattack tainted the male part of it was Sidin, I think, and Sidar. But Sidin was tainted, the male half of the power, which means that nowadays any male who can channel the one power is doomed to go insane. So it's modern day times. There is the kingdoms all around, and one of the most powerful political groups is the White Tower, which is all females who can channel, and they have different ajas. They have different sects, that all focus on a different thing. Like the red one, they're only interested in hunting down men who can channel. They're like, and the green ones, they're all warriors. The blue ones are all academics, or the blue ones are more political kind of diplomats. Yes, exactly. And then the brown ones are all studying and like muddy academics and stuff. Dirty. They're all muddy and dirty.
It smell like
dirty
crap.
Wrestling. No. So anyway, they go out and they are looking for the reincarnation of Lews Therin Telemann, the Dragon Reborn, they call him. So they know by prophecy that this is going to happen, and the appearance of the Dragon Reborn is going to herald the beginning of the ending of this age, which means there's going to be a great battle. They call it the final battle with the Dark One. And the Dark One has his minions. These are a lot of them are like higher up channelers that were a part of the previous age, but they've survived and they've kind of kept themselves hidden up until now, because some of them were sealed away kind of deep in the Dark One's base, and some were kind of more towards the surface. So they've been out in the world slowly reemerging and kind of influencing kingdoms and people and kind of getting everything ready for this last battle. So that's the setting of the Wheel of Time in which all the events take place. And Robert Jordan, the author, man, he did such a good job of weaving a whole world. In fantasy, you have to create the world, right? You have to craft the world. You have to give them, peoples and customs and ways of living, and they all have to have points of view. There's religions and different factions. It's like the world that we live in today. It's people with different opinions going at each other, trying to outmaneuver one another. There's relative peace, and then wars going on over here. You've got the Ale, which are kind of they're kind of a nomadic band that come from something called the Threefold Land. It's like a wasteland that's very dry and desert-like, but it makes them hard. It makes them cool warriors. They're totally awesome and badass. But Robert Jordan did a really good job of creating this amazing world with this and lots of characters. I would say that in the books, that's one of the hardest aspects of the books is the way that he names people is like Rand al'Thor and, Nynaeve Almira. And it's almost kind of like Middle Eastern type names, but combined with.
Sure, like very Arabic based.
Yeah, with like European kind of accents and stuff, so many characters in the there's so many main characters. So it's like 30 or 40 main characters, and if you don't stay up with them, and like I left the book series in early 2000s because a new book hadn't come out in a while. I'm just like, oh, I'll get to it later, and then you go on and life happens and you don't get back to it. And finally,
live your life.
I finally had to finish the whole series, the last 2 books on audiobook, because I just couldn't find time to sit down and read the rest of them. But
sure.
I couldn't remember who anybody was, except for like the 4 or 5 main characters. I'm like, I know who that is, but I don't know who this is over here. But man, it's just such a good job of keeping all that straight. And then hats off to Brandon Sanderson. He's an author who was hired or brought in, and he had all the notes, of Robert Jordan. I think he was getting sick, and I think he laid out how everything was going to happen or what was going to happen, but it was Brandon Sanderson's job to kind of weave it all together and finish it out. And I thought he did a really good job. So now here we are a couple of years ago. I forget when it happened, but the Wheel of Time series from Amazon comes out, and we live in a time where the values of the producers of these TV series and these shows are slightly different maybe than filmmakers and television show producers of times past. And there's a certain equity, diversity, and inclusiveness that must be put on the forefront of the storytelling. And they totally ruined it. They totally ruined this series. And it's sometimes, if you change a character's skin color, or if you change their gender or their sexuality, it's like not a big deal, because we know, or at least I think people that are pretty good at writing, that a character, what comprises a person's character is the values they have, like the choices they make, the adversity that they overcome. Maybe they have a certain perspective that's based on the culture that they came from, but that's kind of woven into their choices and stuff like that. So, it could be a black character or a white character, but if they believe in a certain something or they have a certain religious point of view, that's really what makes the character, not like who they have sex with or whatever. Yeah. But in this series, they really put all that stuff like really on the forefront, and wow. I don't know what they're going to do.
That influences their decisions and everything, and they don't even go by the book. Or
no, yeah. And when you adapt something, I can see why, Rafi Junkins and all the people that were making the show they're kind of up against it, because they have to weave in all of this intricacy and all of these character relationships and these political intrigues and all this stuff in this culture into the show, and they have like 9 episodes to do it, to start it off at least.
Because honestly, you were talking about, before you even went into the series, you have had a lengthy description,
right?
And I'm sure this is just scratching the surface of what the Wheel of Time actually is.
Oh my God, yeah. We could have an entire episode on just the Wheel of Time books, and it would be a 2-part.
Yeah, because I'm just listening, because I've never read, I never looked into it, just because I saw the trailer for Wheel of Time on Amazon, and I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm like, nah, I'm fine. I mean, I'm glad to hear that, like, there's so much more to it, because that's what they did with, the new Lord of the Rings series by Amazon. Like, it was so looked up to. It was I was so excited about it, and just those themes really butchered it, to be honest. Yeah, they totally butchered it and like focused on like, not the story at hand, but literally just pushing in these values of today that like it doesn't matter what you think.
I'm telling you, man, it really when that is what's important to you, your characters have to act differently than maybe even than they would from the very cultures that you're saying that they're from, right? And which means the whole culture has to kind of shape around the points of view of these characters. And if you want to keep this thing going, if that's what's on the forefront of your mind when it comes to the writing and the character choices and the storytelling, then other things will have to be pushed aside in favor of that. And there was a famous quote. I think it was either the Lord of the Rings or the Wheel of Time people. It was contrasted and compared with a different quote from Peter Jackson back in the day. He was saying like, listen, this is not about us. This is about honoring J.R.R. Tolkien. This is about him. We try to ask ourselves, what would he have wanted? How would he have done this thing? So there's like this honoring of the source material because they realize that they've got this property. They didn't create it, right? They didn't create this intellectual property.
It's an entire person's mind.
Yeah, they've been given a gift, and they want to treat it well. They want to carry it forward with great care, in relation to what the author would have wanted. In this day, with Wheel of Time and with Lord of the Rings, that is not their point of view. We want to bring it into what's like a modern audience. We want it for the times that we live in. We want it to reflect, we would want it to develop it reflect the world around us, whatever that means, right? And so the Wheel of Time series, characters they believe different things. They act different, sometimes very differently than how they acted in the book, because what they're trying to do is they're taking the intellectual property and they're saying, we're going to take parts of the intellectual property and we're going to do what we want with them. We're going to tell the story that we want. Like Rian Johnson said in The Last Jedi, he's like, I wanted to make a movie that I would have thought was interesting, that would have excited me, right? Not like, what does it all mean? Or what are the big themes that I can pull from the source material? It's like, no, this is about me. This is about what I want to put forward in my values. And that's exactly what they did with the Wheel of Time TV series. And it sucks.
Not the right answer. It is not the right answer.
So we'll see how they do with the future series. I don't know how they kind of, with certain things like, the last example I'll give you is Moiraine. She's one of the main characters. She is from the Blue Ajah of the White Tower. She knows that the prophecy is coming, so she's trying to find the Dragon Reborn so she can kind of foster him and help him to grow, to be ready. Because some of the people, some of the women don't believe that. They think they should keep him in prison, and locked away until the final day, and they're going to take care of everything themselves. But in the book, she's heterosexual, right? And she has a friendship with kind of the leader of the White Tower, and they kind of intrigue and they kind of, deal back kind of behind the doors. They're trying to work together. They
have a working relationship.
Well, not so in the series. They're lesbian lovers in the series. And that's going to cause problems. They're going to have to change the course of a lot of different things because they both end up with guys. In the books, they both end up making different choices and having things happen to them as a result of the choices they've made because of their heterosexuality. That's going to be different. I'll be interested to see what the showrunners do with that in the future. So,
we'll love to hear it, man. And it was a lengthy rant, but I appreciate
talking
it.
For a while, please, Cameron, tell me something about what.
Okay, how about I tell you something else?
Okay.
Here we go. Let's switch the thread a little bit because we've talked about Wheel of Time seems to be ingrained in our classic example of fantasy where it's like wizards, dragons, back in time. Right. Let's switch it up a little bit and think of modern day fantasy. Okay. Pieces of pop culture that incorporate, all these themes, from the magical era or the magical environment, like dragons, orcs, trolls, fairies, and ingrain them in today's reality. I don't think we've ever talked about this one. I thought it was very entertaining, but have you seen Bright on Netflix with Will Smith?
I have seen Bright, yeah.
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Are you looking to make the most out of your savings? On Raisin.com, you can earn higher interest rates with just a few clicks. Raisin.com gives you access to some of the best rates on CDs and high-yield savings accounts from our partner banks and credit unions nationwide, all from a single login. With your free account, you can fund and manage multiple savings accounts, maximizing your federal deposit insurance coverage and minimizing headaches. There's no minimums, no hidden fees, and no fine print. Grow your savings today. Visit Raisin.com. That's Raisin.com.
Him and I think, what is it? Who was the guy that was Joel Edgerton? Joel Edgerton was his orc buddy, his orc partner. Yeah.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton, and you have Lucy Fry, Naomi Rapace, and Will Smith. I think this one was an excellent idea of a movie. You know, you have Los Angeles, but, you know, fairies, orcs, all these races exist in our time period. And what would it be like in modern times if they continued? Because we've seen all these pieces of pop culture where, you know, it's all medieval times.
Yeah.
But, like, what happens if all this existed today? So, like, you know, you have gangs, you have, you know, drug runners, you have, like, underground fairy prostitution rings. You have, like, all these things that would totally exist in today's rules. And then you have Will Smith, who plays the main protagonist, and his partner's an orc.
Yeah.
But, you know, you kind of see, like, the racial tensions. I mean, you know, racism is a theme today that seems to be very harped on and, you know, visualized. And it's like, okay, well, it would be way worse if, like, you know, we didn't just have different skin colors. We had different, different
actual races.
Like, actual races, you know? Like, how, you know, obviously the orcs are more brutal than humans. Like, obviously they wouldn't like humans because, you know, they stink. They don't have freaking, you know, they're not as strong as us. There's, like, superiority complexes coming into play. Yeah. So I thought this one was, you know, I mean, obviously it didn't get good reviews or anything, but I love the concept of just, like, incorporating these fantastical creatures into a modern era.
It really takes some thought behind it, you know.
It does.
Obviously, you can kind of incorporate, you know, real world stuff like racial tension or you know, gang, you know, police corruption, that kind of stuff. But now you have this extra added element to where there literally are different races, right? So there's like genetic and like social aspects that you have to know as the writer. David Ayer actually directed it, and it's written by Max Landis. So when you're creating this, you have to know like physiology of orcs, physiology and mindset of elves. And the fact that magic in this world is real, but it's like illegal. And magic wands are these black market items that can only be wielded by people called brights. That's where they get the word bright from, without dying. And so I appreciate any writer that can take all those aspects and really weave them into a believable and coherent story.
Yeah. No, it's great. I think it was an awesome example. But I mean, like, on the topic of, like, you know, modern time fantasy, you also have like pieces like Hellboy, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, I love Hellboy. I love I actually like Hellboy 2 better than Hellboy 1.
Yeah, Hellboy 2. Hellboy 2's Golden Army, right?
Yeah, Golden Army. Yep.
Yeah, Golden Army was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's you know, the fact that you have like an entire underground same theme as Bright, where you have all these races living together in modern times, but, you know, obviously humanity has pushed down the other races to live in an underground society, and like you have a paranormal, like, quote unquote FBI/CIA organization that's responsible for, you know, handling paranormal problems, or like kind of being the mediator between the two worlds, even though they exist in one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hellboy 2 was absolutely awesome. I loved the fact that, you know, they really played into the two separate worlds, because Hellboy 1, you know, was mainly on Earth. I mean, it's all on Earth, but it was mainly like, you know, kind of doing like cultish, occult kind of summonings and all that, which is still paranormal. But the fact that they really took what was awesome about the series and dove in head first and introduced this entire new underground society of mystical creatures in Hellboy 2.
Yeah.
They definitely earned my vote on that one. It was awesome.
Yeah, the troll market scene is like one of the best scenes in the whole film, because that's just, you can just tell Guillermo del Toro is the type of dude that he's so, like, he loves all that kind of lore and storytelling from like other cultures. They had this display, actually. They had a Guillermo del Toro display at the Los Angeles LACMA, Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art, over in the Los Angeles area. And they had it there for a couple months. I actually went and saw it, and it's all his personal collection. It's all stuff that he has collected over the course of his life that has influenced the stories that he has told. And it's old stuff, man. He's brought in stuff from all over the world, like European and Asian legends and stories that we have told. We're pretty messed up. We've had pretty weird stories for a long time, man. We've been telling strange stories since the beginning of time. You know, since biblical.
Are you talking about, is that his the newest series that is out? The what is it? It's where it's every episode is a different,
like an anthology series, like Cabinet of Curiosities, I think.
Cabinet of Curiosities. That was great. I loved it.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of it. Is it good?
Oh, you haven't? It's really good. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I'm a big Guillermo del Toro fan, just because, you know, talking about fantasy, talking about like character, his creature design, introducing, you know, the supernatural. That's the director that does it, in my opinion, the best. Because, I mean, I also wanted to talk about Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, yeah, we talked about Pan's Labyrinth, dude.
Yeah, because, I mean, that one is absolutely epic. I mean, not only do you have such a dramatic story in you know, and it's in a different language, so, you know, that's cool.
Yeah, it's all in
and they don't
Spanish.
hold any punches, but just the fact of, like, that's her escape, and it's like, it kind of intertwines with what's reality and what's fantasy, and, you know, they're coming together. Like, how is it a mental thing? Is this all happening inside of her head? It's like, it explores so many more themes than, like, you're just sitting there and just watching it happen. You're like, oh, that's cool. That guy has, like, the scene at the dinner table with the guy with his hands who has the eyeballs in his hands.
Good old Doug Jones.
Yeah,
my best friend.
you know, even if you're not your best friend, you know him.
Yeah, I know. This is actually.
Oh, you met him once?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. I actually know Doug Jones. Like, we haven't spoken in a while.
Oh.
I don't want to give the wrong impression, but like, we were friends. We were hanging out for a while. Like,
I would love to hear the story. How'd you meet?
How did I meet Doug Jones? Let me take you back, Cameron. Let's go way back to the Wayback Machine.
An actual good I met him once
And actually,
story. Hell yeah.
Like we're buddies. Like, you know, kind of, we just kind of lost touch with each other ever since he got cast in the Star Trek show Discovery. We haven't really spoken much, but he's a great guy, man. Fellow Christian, good dude. I met him first at a networking event, this place called the Greenhouse, or this organization called the Greenhouse, which is like kind of more of a faith-based entertainment industry collective where, you know, you get together, and he came and gave a talk once. And then that year, it was like 2014 or 2013 or 14 or 15, saw him crossing the floor, the dealer's room at Comic-Con San Diego. And I was with my buddy. I said, hey, Doug Jones. And he's like, hey, you know, and it's like, so cool to see you here. And we took a picture, and that was really kind of cool. And then he was doing a signing for John Dies at the End, another movie that he was in, he plays a part in, at there's a bookstore called, it's more like a cult, like dark themed, called, I forget the name of it. You guys know it. It used to be on Burbank Boulevard, or it used to be on Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank. Anyway, he went there. I was like, oh, dude, I want to go say hi to Doug Jones, because that's like just down the street from where I was living. And Dark Delicacies. There you go. Dark Delicacies. So he was there. I was in line, came around, got a copy of the movie, and he's like, hey, how? And he like kind of like, hey, good to see you again kind of thing.
He remembered you. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, Doug Jones, it's good to see you. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, hey, let's like hang out. I was like,
that's awesome.
What?
Yeah, that's like everybody's like goal.
Yeah, like
when they like go to like a signing, or like, you know, they know that when a celebrity's going to be somewhere and they like go to sign. That's like every person's fantasy, that they'll just like shake their hand, get an autograph, and they're like, hey, do you want to hang out? Yeah.
That's exactly true, man. I was like, yeah, dude, let's go grab a coffee sometime. And so we set a date, and like we went and picked up coffees. And this is the best part of the story. Where we were sitting there drinking our coffees, and we were talking about this, that, and the other thing. And he's like, where did you and I first meet? I said, well, you know, we met, you know, there was the Greenhouse thing, you know, where you gave a talk. He's like, oh yeah, you know, and then he's like, and then we met at the comic convention. He's like, oh yeah, in New Mexico. I was like, no, in San Diego Comic-Con. He's like, no. We met in the Comic-Con in New Mexico. I remember, because you're Chris Evans' stunt double. And I was like, no, I'm not Chris Evans' stunt double. He's like, oh my God, I totally thought you were somebody else.
Oh my God. So he like, the reason he wanted to get to know you, because he thought you were like big deal.
He thought I was, I thought it was like Chris Evans' stunt double. And I was like, no, that's
oh my
not me.
God.
But
he probably felt so silly and awkward. And he's just like, oh my God, this guy could be a serial killer. I don't
he's like, now
know. He's going to eat my skin.
Yeah, now we have to be friends, and I have to string this along just to show that I'm not a total jerk. No, but I mean,
oh my God. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was, it couldn't have happened any better. But like, yeah, we hung out and, you know, did what we did and stuff, and had some good times. And then he just, I don't know, life happens, you get busy and stuff. And
sure, you should send him a message and be like, hey. I'm not Chris Evans' stunt double. Like, remember me?
I know.
Not Chris Evans'
the only reason you're just trying to advance your own career, Doug Jones. I know what kind of person you are.
Know.
Yeah,
I know. You want me to introduce you to Chris Evans. Well, guess what? I don't know him. That's awesome, dude. Well, yeah, Doug Jones, I mean, on the topic of fantasy, like that dude has been in so much.
So much.
You
That's
know,
guy. He's a
Guillermo
character.
del Toro.
Yeah.
He's,
costumes.
Not to mention, he plays the ice cream man in Legion.
Yep.
Like,
he
yeah,
totally does. Yep.
yeah.
He never plays a
that
normal
guy's got a
person. He just
repertoire.
doesn't. He never
No.
plays just a guy. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look like that, when you're like tall and you're super lengthy, like
he did mime
roles you
a
play
lot.
are very limited.
He's done a lot of physical acting in his time, like mime.
Yeah.
He did that in like college when he was younger, so he has that
Yeah.
physical background. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you look a certain way, you are only allowed to play characters. Like if you look like a villain, you will play villains the rest of your life.
Yep.
You're not going to play like a nice guy.
Yeah. Henry Cavill's never going to play like a bad person. You know.
Yeah, except in in that James Bond.
Oh, you're
film
right,
where he
James
played-
Bond. Well, and because that was the trick, is he looks like the good guy. I guess you're right. He played against type in that one. Yeah.
Well, I think we got time for one more, man. If you want to pick one,
Man, why
and
do we
then
do this
we'll.
to ourselves. We got to have a part 2. Let's just say part 2
We-
fantasy or part 3
Okay.
maybe. I don't know, general fantasy. Here's the problem, Cameron. Do I go for more recent experiences with fantasy, or do I go with more of the ones that kind of influenced me to like fantasy as much as I do? That's the moral dilemma that I have here, because I could talk about.
I think what holds more value is what drew you into the fantasy genre. So let's hear one of those quick ones,
All
but
right.
keep it short, my friend. I will start the timer.
Okay, all right, here we go. Let me just skim the list real quick. Okay, if I had to give one of the earliest examples of something that influenced me to love the fantasy genre, it would be The Never-Ending Story.
Oh my God.
Early 80s movie.
Delicious rocks.
They look like good, strong hands, don't they? That movie's dark. Never-Ending Story is about a young boy who is having a hard time. His
Super
mom
dark.
has died, and his father is not doing a very good job of helping him through it. He goes to school one day, and he skips school, or actually he gets bullied by some kids, and so he runs away and hides in a bookstore, and he finds this book called The Never-Ending Story. And the dude's like, the guy of the book, he's like, you get out of here. This book is not safe. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, most books, if you read them, you can close it up and it's fine. And it's not actually happening. And the guy's like, and the old man's like, this book is not safe. This is not like that. It's not that kind of story. And so the kid, of course, steals it and skips school that day and hides in the attic of the school, which I don't know what kind of attic, like this kind of.
What school has an attic, man?
Yeah, that attic is like super creepy and full of amazing, awesome, like wolf heads and stuff. But, and he just reads the story, and it's about this fantasy land where there are all these amazing creatures, very fantasy-like, and there is the child empress who is dying because there's something called the Nothing that is
The Nothing is taking over.
Yeah, and it's if you haven't seen it, folks, and you fancy yourself a fan of fantasy movies, this is like one of the foundational cinematic experiences.
This is OG
of my
This is
life.
OG.
Yeah, Never-Ending Story. Don't watch.
Artax!
Yeah, Artax. Yeah, you got.
Artax!
Oh yeah, Atreyu. Yeah, the Atreyu, the child warrior, and then Artax is. That movie's sad and dark and not.
There is so much. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a child movie.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be like a
kids
kid's
movie. Yeah, right.
It's not a
Yeah,
kid's
right.
movie because it's emotionally scarring.
Yeah, it is, man. But I guess I can't say too much else without going on a rant, but it impacted me. Like, I will never forget that movie as long as I live. And really good fantasy, really good themes, stories about loss and imagination and belief. Can't recommend it highly enough. That'll be my final entry into this way too short fantasy episode.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm glad you got to get all your emotions and your feelings off your chest in this one. I hope everybody enjoyed them. And if you did, send us an email. Let us know what you think about Izzy's emotional journey through this fantasy episode.
Hey, do you got anything else you want to say, man? I feel like I talked a lot.
You did, but I enjoy your
Okay,
input.
all right, man.
I mean, like I said, man, there are so many. Like, I can't talk. I already opened with Shadow of War, and everybody knows Lord of the Rings is my staple for fantasy movies. Yeah. But I'm glad you ended on The Never-Ending Story because I rewatched it recently, and it's out there, dude. It's like,
I gotta watch that movie sometime,
yeah, you go watch it again. If you haven't seen Never-Ending Story and you're grown and you're an adult, it's going to trip you out. It's like, what the hell? This is a children's movie. But no, man, I think we got some really good ones in here. I am happy
All right.
with
If
the
you're
way
happy,
this one
I'm
turned
happy,
out. Okay. But Unfortunately, we don't have a fan question for this one, but that's okay because this leaves you, the listener, an opportunity to send us an email to pcfmpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Instagram at pcfmpodcast. Or if you're a loyal patron, you can send us a message through Patreon, and we will put you on an episode and we will answer your question because we appreciate you people.
Absolutely.
And all the support you've given us so far. But we do have a game. And we always have a game.
Yes.
So let's just go ahead and get right into the game, Izzy.
This game was cooked up especially for Cameron by Chris because he loves him and wants him to succeed.
Awesome. I know that is full of false statements because he doesn't love me and he wants to hear me fail miserably. But thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
I don't know, man. Upon a cursory glance and skimming of this game, I think you might do well. This game is called Lord of the Rings or Some Other Thing.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm going to say a character name, and you tell me if it's from the Lord of the Rings or some other fantasy story. So huge bonus points if you can tell me what any of the non-Lord of the Rings characters are from. So all you have to do is, that's the point is it Lord of the Rings or some other thing? Bonus points if you can tell us exactly where it's from.
Okay, we'll see how big of a Lord of the Rings fan I've claimed to be over the years and see how well I can do in this.
All right.
No pressure.
Let's start with the warm-up then.
Okay.
Morgoth.
Morgoth is in Lord of the Rings. He is the big baddie from the First Age, and yeah, he is Sauron's big daddy.
Sauron, yeah. Or Saruman or Sauron?
He's Saruman and Sauron's big daddy.
You were the one that told me about this. I didn't know. I thought Sauron was like the dude.
No. Sauron is a lieutenant in Morgoth's army. So, like, Sauron is, like, not the big baddie. He's a big baddie in the Third Age because they've defeated Morgoth, so he's pretty much trying to, like, continue it.
Yeah.
But no, if you go into, like, the Second Age and the First Age, like, Morgoth is the big man.
All right, nice. Well, you're on your way, man. Okay, let's start off with the first one.
Let's see. Starting off strong.
Yep, starting off strong. First one, number one, Aslan.
Aslan, he's from Narnia.
That's correct. 2 points. Point and a bonus point. Not from Lord of the Rings.
He's the lion from Chronicles of Narnia. He is the protagonist of the Good Forces. He is the giant lion that everybody wants to ride.
Yeah, good job, man. You're on your way.
We're on our way.
Let's go to number two.
I don't want to get too, big, full of myself here. I mean, we still got a game to play here.
Right, just believe in yourself.
Okay.
Thranduil.
I feel like he is in Lord of the Rings, but not like... Yeah, I'm going to go. I think he's like a secondary character. He's not a main, but he's definitely in Lord of the Rings.
You are correct. He's from Lord of the Rings. He's the Elven King and Legolas's father.
Yeah.
So he is in
from
the
Hobbit series.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hobbit series. The beautiful man. Yeah.
Beautiful man, that Lee Pace.
Yeah, he is a dick.
Yeah.
Too.
Yep.
He does not like dwarves.
No, he's very kind of closed off, like he doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
So good job, man. You're 2 for 2. Let's go to number 3. Ugluk.
This doesn't sound like a Lord of the Rings character. I'm going through all the doors. I'm like going, Ugluk. No, I'm going to say it's not Lord of the Rings, but I'm not sure what it's from.
Oh, he is from Lord of the Rings.
He is Lord of the Rings. What character is he?
He's the leader of the Uruk-hai sent from Isengard. He kills Boromir. He's the one that gets killed by...
Oh, he is the Uruk-hai. He's in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, Fellowship of the
His
Ring.
name is Ugluk?
Yeah, Ugluk is his name. He's never specifically named in the movies, but I'm sure...
You just need to be a super fan to know Ugluk. Okay, now, that's funny because I wanted to get... Originally, when I was like debating my Lord of the Rings tattoos, I was going to get a portrait of him on my forearm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually still planning on getting like an American... I found like this tattoo artist that does Lord of the Ring American traditional tattoos, and they do this like American traditional version of him, and I want to get it on my leg. Nice. I like showed my tattoo artist already, and I'm like, yeah, it's happening.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, Ugluk. I didn't know he had a name though. I thought he was just just super ugly and mean.
Yeah, he's just a killer. Well, now you know when you get that tattoo who's going to be on your
this is Ugluk. He kills Boromir in Fellowship of the Ring, and then he gets beheaded by Aragorn.
Nerd. All right, man, you didn't get this one, but you're doing pretty good. Let's go to the next one. Next name is Egwene Alvear.
This one doesn't sound familiar either. McQueen Alvear. It does kind of sound elvish, though.
I'll give you a hint. We've talked about this before recently.
We've talked about this recently on this episode. Okay, then I'm going to say it's not from Lord of the Rings because we haven't covered a lot of Lord of the Rings on this episode. I'm just going to guess it's from like, it sounds kind of Arabic, so I'll just go with Wheel of Time.
You are correct. It is from the Wheel of Time. Egwene Alvear is one of the main characters. The owl and the Alvear is a dead giveaway. Because everybody in that series has like somewhere, like Saba,
Habibi,
El
Shabab, Habibi.
Al that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Al Muhammad. Yeah.
Good.
Habibi, Shabab.
Yeah, Habibi. Good one, man. You're 3 out of 4. Next one, Glorfindel.
Glorfindel. It sounds like a mix between a dwarven name and Rivendell. Glorfindel. I'm going to say that's from Lord of the Rings. That sounds pretty Lord of the Ringsy.
That is correct. He is from the book Fellowship of the Ring. He's actually the one in the book that saves Frodo from the ring wraiths.
Oh.
Yeah. So in the movie, they changed it to, what's her name?
The chick.
Yeah.
Aragorn's love.
Yeah, Aragorn's
love. Erwin.
Yeah.
Erwin. No,
Erewhon?
that's a supermarket.
Eowyn. Not Eowyn.
No. Erwin.
Oh, God. Okay.
Is
Everyone's
it?
screaming
Let's
at their
see.
radios right now. Eowyn. But there's the human girl that falls in love with him who has a similar name.
Yeah, she's not cool.
Arwen.
Arwen. There it is. Yeah, Arwen's badass. But yeah.
I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, let's move on. Let's just move on. You are correct. We have 2 more. Celebrimbor.
Yeah, he's the creator of the ring.
Yeah, he's in the game. He's the guy.
He is. Yeah,
Shadow.
with. Yeah, he's your spirit guide.
Smith who forged the
Celebrimbor!
rings of power.
Throw it into the fire.
The Bright Lord, as they say in Shadow of War.
Yeah, the Bright Lord. Yeah.
All right, you got that one, man. We got one left. Here we go. This is for all the marbles. Subutai. This doesn't sound like Lord of the Rings to me. If it is, it's in the books, and I haven't read them in a long time. But I'm going to go, no, it's not in Lord of the Rings, but I don't know what Subutai would be in. Good instincts, man. He is not from Lord of the Rings. He is friend to Conan the Barbarian. He's in the first Conan the Barbarian movie. I am Subutai.
He's the thief?
and archer. He's his Mongolian-looking friend. Yeah, the one that saves him on the Tree of Woe. I cried in that moment. I love that.
Subutai.
Yeah, good. So good job, man. You only missed one, man, and that was just because it was book lore, which, I can understand. You haven't seen that in a while. But good job, man. You killed it on this one.
Thanks, man. If I didn't, I would have to hang myself. And now I really want to go back and read all the books again because there are so many things in the books that like the movies don't encapsulate, and I need to knock out the Silmarillion again. I started listening to it. I know they have. I got to figure out where this is. I keep seeing reels of it. They have Andy Serkis. Reading the Silmarillion. Whoa. And he does it so well.
He's so good.
Like, he puts all his effort into reading it. And I keep seeing these reels of him doing it. And it's honestly epic. The Silmarillion's very long.
Yeah.
So I want to find this and listen to it for days. Because it's art. This is that's voice acting 101 art. This is the standard. But anyways, cool. That was a really fun game, man. That's thanks for playing with me. It was fun.
And thank you, Chris, for creating a great game for Cameron to just totally.
I guess you do love
really
me.
Do love him, yes. And we love all of you, folks. Thank you for joining us on this amazing episode of fantasy, which is an amazing genre that I love, that Cameron loves. We hope you loved it as well. Let me know what you thought about my Lord of the Rings rant, or my Wheel of Time rant, rather.
Wheel of Time rant,
because I know it's a hot topic. It's hotly contested, so I would love to hear your feedback.
Hollywood, ruining everything. Diversity at a time. Yes. One diversity,
inclusivity, and equity at a time. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, folks, we hope you had fun. And with that, cue music. See you on the next one.
going on, everybody? You just listened to the free version of the PCFM podcast. If you want full-length versions of podcast episodes, plus much, much more, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/PCFM podcast.
That is right, Israel. If you want access to this full episode, you have to subscribe to the Fuzzy Private tier, which is our cheapest tier on Patreon at $5 a month. But if you are interested in a little bit more, we also have the Salty Sergeant tier at $8 a month and the Lifer tier at $12 a month. So hopefully we will see you there, PCFM family. Cue music.
Well. Shopping for a car?
Yep, Carvana made financing a car as smooth as can be.
Oh, yeah?
I got pre-qualified instantly and had real terms personalized just for me.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
Well, I got to browse thousands of car options on Carvana, all within my budget.
Doesn't get much smoother than that.
It does. I actually wanted a car that seemed out of my range, but I was able to add a cosigner and found my dream car.
It doesn't get much...
Oh, it gets smoother. It's getting delivered tomorrow.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get pre-qualified today.
Anthem Blue Cross and Common Threads are helping schools across the country learn about healthier food preparation. And here in LA, they're joined by the Sparks and will provide education, recipes, and knowledge to students and families about healthier options. Learn more at anthem.com/CA/Sparks. Anthem Blue Cross is the trade name of Blue Cross of California.